Foundation. We welcome you once again to this very, very important meeting. And I am your moderator this morning. My name is Mavic Cabrera Valleza. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Global Network of Women Peacebuilders. Before we proceed with the very substantive discussion, I just want to let you know that we are organizing this event in a hybrid format. In addition to us gathered in this room, we have more than 100 registered participants online from around the world. And later on, we will be taking questions and comments both from the room and from our online participants. I also want to seek permission from everyone regarding our social media outreach, including live tweeting. And we will be taking some photos as the discussion progresses. So please raise your hand and or inform my colleague, our program coordinator from GNWP, if you don't want your photo taken or you don't want to be coded in our live tweeting and other social media outreach. We will have, this is at the center of our advocacy. The topic for this morning is the center of our advocacy on women, peace, and security. So we encourage everyone to stay focused on the topic. We also prepared coffee and tea, I believe, and water. Please feel free to help yourselves and take the food and drink to with you when you take your seat. All right, I think we're on to our start now. I would like to make short introduction to of our speakers. I won't be able to do justice to their impressive CVs. So this is a short version of those impressive CVs. First, we have Chairperson of the Bangsamoro Women's Commission and Member of Parliament of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, the Honorable Bainon Karon, to the extreme left. Chairperson Karon is responsible for crafting the Gender and Development Code of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. And before then, she was also very active during the campaign for the Bangsamoro Organic Law. For those who have not been following the process that closely, there are very many details to it, of course. The comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro was signed in 2014, and that was followed by a plebiscite to translate the agreement into the Bangsamoro Organic Law. So it's both a signed agreement and the law. And Chairperson Karon took a very active role in that. And I must also say, many of the local women peace builders and youth peace builders that we've been working with in the Philippines, particularly in Mindanao, also participated in the campaign. And in all of the barangays or communities and municipalities where they campaign, the Bangsamoro Organic Law was ratified. And back to Chairperson Karon. Before being appointed as chairperson of the Bangsamoro Women's Commission, she held various key positions in Mindanao. And She has been nominated for various awards for her work on peace and women's rights and gender equality, and including the Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. And of course, she is one of the awardees, Lotus Award that was recently, that will officially be held tonight. Yeah, organized by the Asia Foundation. Next to Chairperson Karon is Attorney Elijah B. Dumama-Alba. It's not a very long name. Who is also a member of Parliament of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. And she was unanimously elected as Parliament Floor Leader in September 2022. And she is the Minister of the Interior and Local Government in the BARMM, or the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. And prior to her current designation, Elijah has served as the Bangsamoro Attorney General and co-headed the Joint Secretariat of the International Government Relations Body, which is a mechanism for cooperation and coordination between the national government and the Bangsamoro government. And also joining us is and of course, what's the Lotus Awardees. And also joining us this morning is Noraida, Chio, who is the Senior Program Officer of the Asia Foundation, Philippines, and she has more than 20 years of experience working in fragile and conflict-affected areas of Mindanao. And she manages the Asia Foundation's projects that support long-term stability and development in conflict-affected areas of Mindanao by promoting active citizenry through proactive engagement with the new Bangsamoro government. So we join you in welcoming all of our formidable panelists, and we will now proceed with our conversation with all of them. And in this process, we will be answering these important questions, which are, the questions related to the status of implementation of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro and the current state of the peace process in the BARMM overall, and the role of various stakeholders, in addition to the women leaders that we see here, local civil society, especially women's rights organizations and youth peace builders, academia, media, and international actors who support this process in the Philippines. And we also hope to hear from UN and government policymakers who are in the room and online regarding their insights on this process and how it relates to other peace processes where women's organizations like the Global Network of Women Peacebuilders are consistently advocating for women's central role in peace processes, especially formal peace negotiations and how those link to informal peace processes. And of course, we also hope to have actionable recommendations that would further enhance the Bangsamoro peace process. So on to our conversation now. I would like to start with MP Sha Elijah B. Dumama-Alba. So how will you describe the status of the implementation of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro and the current state of the peace process in the autonomous region? And what do you think are the Moro women leaders like yourselves? What are your roles in these important processes?
Thank you, Mavic. Good morning, everyone. It's interesting to note that this year is the 10th anniversary of the signing of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro, and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front intentionally held a commemoration activity on March 27, 2024. And during that commemoration, the chairperson of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front Peace Negotiating and now Peace Implementing Panel, Minister Mohagar Iqbal, was able to deliver the status of the implementation of the peace process from the perspective of the MILF. Of course, during that commemoration, the government of the Philippines was also represented by the Secretary of Peace, Reconciliation and Unity, Secretary Galvez, and I would say that it was really an eye-opener for everybody to know the actual and real status of the peace process. We are happy to note that as far as the political track is concerned, the normalization is really gaining ground. But then we have to also highlight that there is an imbalance as to the implementation. The commissioning has really progressed way ahead than the other components of normalization. We still have no Transitional Justice and Reconciliation Commission. There is really delayed implementation of the amnesty provision. Well, we are happy that on April 29th, the President of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., will be visiting one of the camps to officially pronounce some of the government interventions on the camp's transformation, and that's a welcome development. But the socio-economic packages that have been promised to the combatants have not been fully materialized. In terms of the legal track, the Bangsamoro Organic Law is one of the major accomplishments of this peace process, and we have been in transition from 2019 until 2025, and we are really anticipating the 2025 elections. So this is the last full year of the transition period, and we are really trying our best. The government of the Bangsamoro is trying its best to deliver the development programs and the development agenda for the Bangsamoro. As far as the constitutional track is concerned, there has been movement in terms of a charter change, not very accepted from among the legislators at the level of the national government, but this is something that's also embodied in the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro to ensure that we could embed the Bangsamoro in the constitution. So it would be to our advantage if that happens, but then we of course respect the processes of the national government in terms of legislation, especially with the constitutional track. The role of women in the Bangsamoro peace process cannot be overemphasized. We have been behind the scenes and on the front lines. Ma'am Bainon Karon has been one of the pillars of the Bangsamoro women's movement, together with MP Aida Silongan, who was also invited to be part of this trip. No, he's the Minister of Science and Technology. Out of the 15 cabinet members in the Bangsamoro, there are 3 women cabinet members, and so we are very much involved in lobbying, no, and then in policy and decision making at the management level, and of course, I have to mention the contributions of Vice Sandra Sema and Ruby Sahali, who were women legislators in Congress, who really helped push for the passage of the Bangsamoro Organic Law when they were still in politics. And finally, as of the moment, the Bangsamoro Women's Commission have laid down many programs and projects and activities for strengthening women's participation, not only in the communities, also in political and economic aspects. Customary informal justice systems, women are really leading there, and of course, WPS.
Thank you so much, Elijah, for that excellent overview on what have been accomplished so far and what are the remaining challenges and the central role of women from the on the front row of the peace process as well as in the backroom support for the process, which is equally important. Chairperson Karon, we know that without the active involvement of women civil society, already touched upon by Elijah, what are the other interactions that you've had with local women's organizations that you believe really stand out in terms of first, moving this process forward? And I know it took 17 years, if I'm not mistaken, before the peace agreement was signed. And now you have this big achievement, but that's only part of the work, right? A lot of times the bigger challenges is how to, to ensure that the peace agreement is implemented. So what experiences stand out for you in terms of your work with local women's rights organizations?
For President Noraida to answer the questions, in behalf of our beloved Chief Minister, of the Bangsamoro Muslim Mindanao, to have courtesies with our fatherly ambassador and Moro and to everyone, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning, everyone. Now, the history of the Bangsamoro peace process is full of stories of women taking crucial roles as advocates, facilitators, mediators, and peacebuilders. In the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, women constitute 51% of the 2,055,568 of the total population. The role of the local women's organization was crucial in the passage of the Bangsamoro Organic Group. Women formed coalition, that is the Women Organization Movement, for the Bangsamoro, or we call it WOM. For instance, in 2018, thousands of Bangsamoro women, some of whom walked barefoot under the heat of the sun, lobbied and rallied for the passage of the ratification of the Bangsamoro Organic Group. They wanted peace and actively claimed their positions to be participants of peace and nation building. And thus, there can be no genuine peace without the meaningful inclusion and participation of women in building the Bangsamoro.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Karon, for reinforcing that point on the centrality of women's participation in advancing the peace process and making sure that the peace agreement doesn't remain words on paper, but policies that would really be implemented, laws and policies that would really be implemented to effect positive and transformative change in their lives. Noraida, I will now turn to you. How has the Asia Foundation been supporting the Bangsamoro peace process, and what has been the focus of your support lately?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone, and good evening in the Philippines. For those attending via Zoom in the Philippines, good evening. The Asia Foundation has been in the Philippines for more than 70 years. And in the Philippines, in Mindanao particularly, we're there for more than 30 years. And I think the kind of relationship that we built and our long-term presence in Mindanao facilitated our involvement, meaningful involvement and support with the peace process. During the negotiation period, the Asia Foundation played a role as one of the members of the International Contact Group, or we call it ICG, It's a mechanism within the peace process that provides technical assistance to the panels of the government as well as of the MILF whenever needed. And then when the framework agreement on the Bangsamoro, or we call it FAB, was signed, we were requested by the two parties, the government as well as of the MILF, to transition from being a member of the International Contact Group to becoming one of the members of the Third Party Monitoring Team, or TPMT. It's also a mechanism within the peace process architecture that monitors the implementation of all signed peace agreements between the government of the Philippines as well of the MILF. And that was during the negotiation and at the initial phase of the implementation. Currently, we're also providing, because we are now in the implementation period, we are providing support to the transitional government of the Bangsamoro Autonomous in Muslim Mindanao, or the BARMM, in terms of institutional development, providing capacity building activities to local leaders or ministries and offices for them to effectively and efficiently achieve their mandates. And we also provide support to civil society organizations for proactive engagement with the new Bangsamoro government. And we're also providing support to other stakeholders in terms of, engaging effectively with our new Bangsamoro government. As to the second question, in terms of our current support to the peace process, we are also, just like mentioned earlier by Attorney Elijah, we are anticipating the 2025 elections. So since this is a very unique elections in the entire country, because at the national level, we have the presidential form of government, and at the regional level, we have the ministerial form of government. We have the parliament system in the regional level. This is something unique, not only to the regional level with the Bangsamoro, but as well as with the entire country. So even ourselves, we don't know how to vote under a parliamentary system of government. So currently, we're focusing on raising the awareness level of our, of everyone in the Bangsamoro region in terms of voting under a parliamentary system of government. So it's really about voters' education. And secondly, is on women economic empowerment. So we have projects that's being tagged as the Accelerate, that provides opportunities to women, particularly those who have not been, meaningfully engaged in economic activities because of conflict. So now we are helping them in terms of economic empowerment, particularly focusing on women and other initiatives, hopefully to help the new Bangsamoro government. And we're very much supportive of the ongoing peace and development in the region. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Noraida. And I will turn again to Chairperson Karon and Elijah. Based on your experiences as members of Parliament, what are the most important wins or achievements and the biggest challenges so far faced in the Bangsamoro in relation to the implementation of the peace agreement? You've mentioned some of the challenges earlier, so maybe this time you can elaborate on how you are addressing those. Chairperson Karon, would you like to take the floor first?
So, as member of the Parliament, my key agenda is centered on empowerment, whether it's economic, social, or intellectual. And when you address economic empowerment, you address conflict because peace follows peace. When you address intellectual empowerment, you address oppression because ignorance is the premise of oppression. Empowerment has always been my key agenda. So we always pour our efforts into training women, initiatives that advance women's rights and participation, and gender-responsive legislation. During my time as a member of the Parliament, one of my biggest wins was the approval of the Bangsamoro Autonomy Act number 8 on the act creating the Bangsamoro Women Commission. When in government, women in the government bring to the fore the real issues of community building and ask questions on difficult but important subjects like reproductive health care, domestic violence, family budgets, and etc. So women bring the discussion to the ground to come up with a concrete and impactful decisions and solutions.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Karon. Elijah, would you like to add to what, the chairperson has shared with us?
So I'd like to share about the wins
Okay.
of the implementation of the peace agreements. I think one of the biggest, the crowning glory would be of course, the Bangsamoro Organic Law. And through that, we established the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. We created the Bangsamoro Parliament through that law. And then there was more women representation in Parliament, more women representation in the cabinet, and really focusing on the women's agenda through the creation of the commission, chaired by Ma'am Bainon, Karon. We also have mechanisms that strengthen coordination and collaboration and cooperation between the national government and the Bangsamoro government. It's called the Intergovernmental Relations Body. So there are high-level representation coming from both governments, and we are able to discuss issues that really affect mutual interests of both governments. And perhaps one of the biggest wins as well is the active involvement and participation of the international community. Because this is really something unique to our peace process that has not been done in other peace processes. The presence of the international community through the TPMP, the third-party monitoring team, the international contact group, and what used to be the international monitoring team, which unfortunately has not been renewed. The terms of reference has not been renewed, but it really made an impact when the international community was watching how the implementation of the peace process was going. I'd like to also mention about how the regional government addresses all of the challenges that I earlier shared with you about the imbalanced implementation of the normalization and the lack of adequate funds for normalization. So we have, through the Bangsamoro government, the leadership of Chief Minister Ahod Ibrahim, we have strengthened local governance by making sure that there is coordination between the regional government and the local government units. We have made a lot of strides in terms of infrastructure, social services, and health. We have recorded the lowest poverty incidence rate since in 2018, it was at 55.9%, but by 2022, we reduced it to 29.8%. So that's really a remarkable double-digit reduction. We have almost 9 billion in investments. That is more than, in 3 years, that is more than 30 years combined of the BARMM. So there's an economic growth of 7.5% for the BARMM. So it goes to show that the confidence that we are building is due to the fact that there is better peace and order in the Bangsamoro. So we really owe it to how the Bangsamoro government also ensures inclusive and participatory governance, opening the doors for CSOs, NGOs, INGOs, and everybody, the private sector, everybody who has an interest and a stake in the development and progress of the Bangsamoro region.
Thank you. This is very interesting, Elijah, and especially, impressive to hear about the reduction of poverty. But at the same time, there are remaining challenges, and you actually pointed them out in the beginning of your presentation. And more recently, for example, just 3 days ago, there was a battle between the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, Karyalan faction, and the military, and several casualties, sadly, in that incident. And then another case that I could think of was the bombing at the Marawi State University in December 2023. And yeah, how do you how do you look at these incidents? And also the economic growth that is only, you know, a big factor in economic growth is peace and security, right? Peace for everyone, not just the business community. A province, a region, and a municipality where you have that is a good place to do business. That's the simple logic. So how do you,
Yeah.
analyze this together?
So thank you. It's really disheartening just when everything is going for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, these things happen. And it is really an indication of you know, how do we treat the pulling out of like the as I mentioned, the international monitoring team, which could have really helped in avoiding that kind of skirmish or conflict that happened 3 days ago. There are also mechanisms at the level of the national government and the Bangsamoro government, particularly in the security sector, where we are helping each other to make sure that peace and order will be at least maintained or sustained in the region. Tourism has really hit a high record since the peace and order situation improved. But now, of course, we know that because of these things happening, embassies would have really given advisories against visiting our area. So it's something that we really grapple with, especially since it is going to be elections in 2025. So the timing and everything, and analyzing how and where to really put interventions to maintain and sustain the peace and order situation is something that the national government and the Bangsamoro government, even the MILF and the GPH peace panels should be seriously discussing.
Thank you so much. I'm sure it will be, you know, a priority topic in all of your discussions. And yeah, and for us, civil society, we will also be closely monitoring it and contribute in every way we can. Chairperson Karon, I would like to shift the conversation a little to discuss the Regional Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, and also your contribution to the National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. For those not aware, this is one area of work on women, peace and security, wherein the Global Network of Women Peacebuilders is very active in. We have worked with around 30 member states or 30 governments, working both with the governments, but of course, one of the conditions that we say at the onset when they approach us is only if civil society will be co-partners in developing, drafting, designing the implementation plan, monitoring, and working for a gender responsive budget for the National Action Plan. And of course, centering localization as a strategy that we will provide technical support. It's, you know, it's a non-negotiable condition that we present. So, Chairperson Karon, having led the, you know, process on the Regional Action Plan and significantly contributing to the National Action Plan, a lot of times the national government has a lot to learn from, you know, from the BARMM in all of this work. How will you describe that? And how has the RAP has become an instrument in preventing conflict and continuing support for the Bangsamoro Organic Law and the BARMM?
Now, localizing WPS action plans allows for convergence between government, security sector, non-state armed groups, and women to respond to potential triggers and armed encounters. Information sharing of threats are done on time and help to prevent escalation of local armed conflicts. Strengthened women through WPS advocacy are able to contain communal plan violence through the local mediation and early warning, early response. Women supported by WPS capacity building are able to provide life-saving services to IDPs and communities affected by armed encounters. Increase women's meaningful participation in decision-making processes and leadership rules, more intentional inclusion of women, particularly the increased number of women as members of the parliament. More women involve themselves in the local election, such as the barangay, municipal, and provincial polls. The Bangsamoro Women Commission, as the oversight in mainstreaming gender and the Bangsamoro, will ensure that the agency's commitment to the implementation of BRAP is integrated in their guidelines and budgets. As for the local government units, we are finalizing the joint memorandum with the Ministry of Interior and local government to ensure that the RAP is integrated in the local development plans.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Karon, and I was so happy to hear about the integration of localization of the regional action plan into local development plans, and that's one strategy of our work across in about 19 provinces and cities and municipalities in the Philippines, and it's also a strategy that we present to most of our partners, and we're glad in different parts of the world, and we're glad they've also taken that approach. I now would like to ask all three of you, having presented all of these achievements, the persistent gaps, and the essential role of local women peace builders as well as youth builders, what would be the specific support that you want, you want from the international community? Yeah, I'm happy to say that we have several representatives here as well as online. So what will be your asks?
Thank you, Ms. Mabi. For now, I am wearing two hats. One as a staff or as a worker, development worker under the Asia Foundation, and I'm very thankful for that. And second hat I'm wearing now is as a Bangsamoro woman. For the two, and we're very much grateful that international community has been supporting all these years the peace process between the government and the MILF. And yeah, as I said, we're very much grateful for that. And we are requesting the international community to please continue supporting the peace process, particularly in terms of providing technical support, in terms of building capacities, not only of the civil society organizations, but including our leaders, our local leaders, our politicians. And then also please provide us also assistance in terms of expanding opportunities and networks, so we can reach out, we can connect with other development workers, other peace builders across the globe. And then also help us in terms of spreading the good news that it's only peace. That peace is the only war that is worth waging for. And that women, we have innate capacity and skill to become effective peace builders. And if that is coupled with training, capacity building activities, then we can ensure the view that we can be an effective and efficient peace builders. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Noraida. Chairperson Karon, any message to the international community, or if you can put it very concretely, what specific support do you need at this point?
Like what Ms. Noraida to telling, we need the support of the international communities to be able to give meanings and support to the BARMM leaders in the implementation of the development program so that we could address the immediate needs and the sustainable livelihood for our people.
Thank you, Chairperson Karon. Elijah?
Yes, just building on what Ms. Noda of the Asia Foundation has said, spreading the word about peace is very important. I think I need to overemphasize the work of the international community in contributing to making the Bangsamoro story known, such as now, no? And to provide resources for the Bangsamoro women. And when I say resources, not just financial resources, networks, connections, as well as opportunities. And provide, share best practices as well. We are not saying that we are the best example of how a peace process works, but you know, in the meantime, I think this is a success story that is worth telling the world. And so it's important that you hold on to the gains. No, we don't let go of the gains, that we sustain the gains of the peace process. And it really helps knowing that you are helping other generations, the next generation, not go through the same things that these Bangsamoro women went through, and to support in the positive things that we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elijah. And as a global women's rights organization that has been following peace processes around the world, I can say with a lot of confidence that the experience of the Bangsamoro women has served as a shining example for women's participation in peace processes, beginning from the local level to the formal peace processes, when often women are underrepresented, if not completely absent. So it's the powerful story keeps, you know, the importance of this powerful story is more needed than ever, given the intensifying conflicts and crises that we see around the world. And yet women remain unheard of, and the least but most essential resource, the least tapped but most essential resource in, you know, in addressing all of these problems. Now, I would like to call on Ambassador Chowdhury to share his reflections on what we've heard from our formidable panelists. And Ambassador Chowdhury and Admiral K. Chowdhury, having made the conceptual breakthrough on women, peace, and security in March 8, 2000, when he was as a permanent representative of Bangladesh, was the president of the Security Council. So, Ambassador, from that experience and what you hear now, what are the key reflections that you can share with us?
Thank you, Mavik. It's a great pleasure to be able to talk to the women leader from Bangsamoro, and I am really honored to see them, see them, meet them, hear them, and to be proud of the process that they have been able to achieve in Bangsamoro region. I am particularly happy that women have contributed in a big way, and that makes my heart delighted, because that was the essential message of 1325 Security Council resolution, that participation of women makes the peace that is agreed upon much better objective than if they are excluded from it. So that's why, and I'm also delighted to find that the achievement has been codified in a big way through a law and the organic law that you spoke about. And I am particularly happy to hear the messages that you gave to the international community. I think the world and people who are actively supporting implementation of 1325 can be proud of what you have done in Bangsamoro. That is a wonderful thing. And I believe that this is, as Mavik said, one of the success stories. As Mavik said, that this matter, the conceptual breakthrough and political breakthrough for 1325 was achieved during my presidency of the Security Council. So, when Mavik asked me to come here, I was delighted to join because I have followed Bangsamoro. There are many, I know your old leader, Noor Misawari, personally. Yeah, we have met. So that is why it is a great pleasure for me to be here today and encourage all of you to continue your good work.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. So we now open the floor for questions and comments. And I would request you to identify yourselves before you ask your question or make your comments. And we will also do alternate, questions and comments from here in the room and online, and to be facilitated by Sophia. Yes, please.
Would you mind coming here so that you can speak it into the microphone, please?
Thank you. Assalamualaikum. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for giving this panel. And this panel is a dream for me. I just want to show you the flag of the Bangsamoro. Growing up,
What is your name and which
my name is
organization?
Putri Ramkamanis. Eleanor, I'm from the Dirampatin family of Burukut Maning Lanao del Sol. And one of our friends there is Maguindanao, she's Darlene Dilangan. So the reason why I really raised my hand because I'm very moved. I grew up in conflict in the midst of, being a child in Mindanao as a Moro woman, as a Moro child, growing up among the MILF Mujahideen, and crossing the fire lines of the other conflict group. This is a dream for me. And me being a nurse in US, I would like to be counted as a Bangsamoro child, woman, now still continuing the Bangsamoro. And now I can wave the flag that has been kept for a while. I have an organization that actually would like to be acknowledged. And I really believe that in remembering the resilience of our ancestors, we will never be conquered. And that is here in diaspora, I carry the legends, epics, and myths that I learned when I was a child. And I put it out as the language for peace process to continue letting the world know that we're not bad people. The way I grew up, they're always called like, ganyan na mga Moros, traidor, So I have to change the accent that I will not maintain the Maranao language, otherwise I'll be killed. You cannot ride a jeepney and you will talk as a Maranao and then you'll be gone. You'll be in the ditches, chopped by a group called Tagtag. I have to change my name into a name that doesn't sound Putri Rangkamani, that doesn't sound Moro. Now I'm very proud here in New York, waving the flag together with Darlene, And we bring the cultural name Kinding Sindao, which is an Austronesian word for graceful movement, or graceful movement. Sindao is an Austronesian word that we still carry, means to spark a light. So, by the graceful movement, we'd like to spark a light in telling the legends, epics, and myths, untold story and untold history of the Bangsamoro, which up to now needs to be told again and again so that even within our Filipino brothers and sisters, that light has to shine, that everyone has to be proud of the Bangsamoro, the way our ancestors fought the colonizers from 1521. And now continuing that peace dream that we can be integrated in the whole society, accept and remember the resilience of our ancestors. We hold the warp of time of the Philippines, the legends of Bantugan, the legends of Tugulog. How much is that integrated in our educational system so that behavioral ethics, moral ethics, and the code of ethics that is carried in that storytelling that was chanted to me by my grand aunt, my father. And now we have to wave that flag to be honored all over the world because we have Greek mythology, we have Roman mythology, we have the ramen in Mindanao. That's untold. Something that we can look back because otherwise, whatever had happened in that history captured in that epic will continually be repeated. And women are the culture bearers, the peace bearers. I'm supposed to have a question, but it will no, that I'm just so concerned with the peace that we are waiting, and all of a sudden some sparks come in. And I always like being in the international world now. I can see that conflict is happening also in other parts of the world, also Muslim areas. In the areas where there are mines, there are gold mines, there are oil mines. Now, particularly in Bangsamoro, we have so much minerals there.
Yeah.
In Cotabato, in one of the most depressed area, there's area there that will just spark light by itself. I'm just looking at some studies, UN studies, UN fact finding that wherever there's wealth in the land, conflict is sparked so that it displaces people.
Thank you so much for your very moving share. Don't leave. Moving sharing, and it's a big lesson. How you told us how you had to hide your identity to protect your personal security, and now how you have evolved to being very proud and speaking proudly about the Moro culture and how rich it is and how much we could learn from it. And we share that with you, and we're, it's a very moving lesson in what women especially go through from, conflict, and now, with the hope of peace, with the peace agreement signed and now being implemented. But I want you to ask your question. Can you do that quickly? I don't want you to lose that opportunity. Are you ready with a question?
Yeah, the question is, I'm comparative now, like growing in conflict, and conflict is being used against people, that the people who lives in that area is being displaced, and some months, years later, discovered that there's gold in that area.
Mm-hmm.
That's not only happening in Mindanao.
Right.
It's happening in Africa. It's happening other parts of the world that are rich in natural resources. That conflict on the surface is a showcase. Oh, there's terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, I'm basing this from what I've read, United Nations reports.
So your question is what is the causal relationship between
The conflict
natural resources, the richness in natural resources, and conflicts
and displacement.
and displacement? Okay, we'll
Thank you.
have that listed here, and we'll ask our panelists to be. Thank you so much. Sophia, do we have, can you share with us one online question or comment?
Yes, of course, we have a number, but I will just give you one and then maybe.
Yeah, we'll
Panelists answer it.
Yeah.
Perfect. So the question we have is from Leah Bayasan from UN Women. For those of us just learning about Bangsamoro, please provide details about the women's agenda items you're focusing on during this process. And thank you for your work.
Thank you. Leah is
That's not my question, though.
Oh, it's not your
No,
question.
it's not my question.
Oh, would you like to ask your question?
Come on up.
Sorry. There's a mixed up in the,
Yeah, there
yeah,
was a
in the
mix-up.
online message.
Yeah.
Leah, please introduce yourself.
Yes,
briefly.
thank you so much, Leah Vyasan. I'm the program specialist, gender responsive policing. So I wanted to know with regards to the setup in BARMM, how are you working together with the police and the local government? What recommendations do you have in ensuring that the concerns of women are particularly taken into consideration as you move towards a more peaceful, secure society with the police? Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Okay, Sophia, you have one more, yeah, share one more question.
Sure, this is kind of a long one.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Or here, we can, all right. So this is a question or more reflections on something from Dr. Socorro Reyes, Senior Research Fellow of the Jose Robredo Institute of Governance, De La Salle University. I want to make sure that you're not in the room. Okay, great. She conducted a regional study on gender and governance in post-conflict societies in various areas in Mindanao. What are your comments on the following key research findings? And I will have 3. First, after the signing of the peace agreement in 2014, decommissioning provisions granting MILF women combatants in the Bangsamoro Islamic Women's Auxiliary Brigade with cash grant, social benefits, and housing allowance have not been completed for 12,000 target recipients. Moreover, MNLF women combatants complain about the perceived inequalities in the delivery of services between MNLF and MILF women combatants and civilians. The slow and bureaucratic processing of required documents have deprived them of much needed assistance through the 4Ps program. The second, the effectiveness of the Bangsamoro Women's Commission, especially its regional offices, in pushing for gender equality and women's empowerment is problematic. Through actively leading the vibrant campaign to end violence against women, some regional women leaders consider its collaboration with BWC more, quote, tactical rather than strategic. Recruitment to policy research positions has been slowed, compromising its primary function as a policy-making body on a wide range of gender issues. Multilateral and bilateral donors, as well as international NGOs, have invested resources for the capacity development of this. And then finally, what is the status of the Gender and Development Code?
Okay, we're making a list here, and I'm sure Elijah and Chairperson Karon would be able to. Sydney.
Thank you. I'm Sydney Jones from IPAC and NYU. I was looking over the women who are heads of local government units in BARMM. Many of them are there as members of traditional families. And in the Bangsamoro Electoral Code and in the Local Governance Code, there is a provision to ban political dynasties. What impact will that have on the presence of women in LGUs?
Thank you, Sydney. Last question before I turn over to our panel. Anne-Marie? Sure.
Thank you. I'm Anne-Marie Goods from New York University. First of all, sincere congratulations to Chairperson Karon and Attorney Dumama-Alba for your prize today. And I hope Ida Silonga is going to collect your prize too.
Yeah.
And indeed, you know, it's richly deserved and it's a wonderful kind of emblem of women's contribution to the peace in the Southern Philippines. I think you're right, Attorney Dumama-Alba, you said that, you know, this is an example. There's a lot to be learned from the Bangsamoro peace process. It is an example of really complex power sharing, which is about power sharing between the central government and the region, the autonomous region, but also internal power sharing, horizontal power sharing.
Yes.
And it's going to be judged on the basis of whether it can prevent conflict from breaking out again. That is obviously the number one way it's going to be judged, but it's also going to be judged on the degree of inclusiveness that it provides. And that's why the gender issue is so terribly important, as is the issue of the inclusion of Indigenous people who are part of the population of the autonomous region. So in that regard, the fact that there is still no passed Indigenous Peoples Code
Okay.
and the Gender and Development Code is still not passed. They're the last two after 6 years of passing new legislation. They remain the last two to be passed. What explains this? Because this remains a big priority, is ensuring adequate inclusion. On the issue of women, there is a very visible presence of women. I mean, 3 out of 15 cabinet makers, sure, cabinet makers, cabinet members, 20% of the transitional authority, the parliament, but also women are all over all the government ministries. And it'd be interesting to know, like, what is the proportion of women staff actually in the BARMM kind of civil service? They certainly seem very visible, and that's a wonderful sign. I was also going to ask you a question about the decommissioning of the auxiliary brigade. As far as I know, only 900 and some have been decommissioned. Have they been given the same resources as men when they've been decommissioned? But I think Socorro answered that or asked that. But on the issue of women in the public sector, this is my last question. Last week, a young member of the Ministry of Social Services and Development was assassinated. And we've seen from news reports that there's been an unusually serious response to this, with a very high bounty put out for information on the killers. What does this mean, the targeting of an MSSD worker? And what does the government's response in this case mean, which seems more serious than, I mean, government workers are assassinated all the time. But this seems to be a particularly serious case.
Thank you so much for that question. I'll now, ask our panelists, Elijah, will you be starting, or Chairperson? Okay, Elijah.
I cannot speak about the MNLF sentiment. I'm sorry, the first one from Ma'am Potri.
Right, the causal relationship between, being a region with rich natural resources and conflict. And there's another one there.
Displacement.
Oh, displacement, of course, which is a result of conflict.
So yes, I think I cannot speak for all, for all conflicts, but one of the root causes of the Bangsamoro struggle is actually the illegal annexation of the Bangsamoro to the Philippines, no? That's the real root cause of the struggle. And it was manifested also by the migration of non-Moros in Mindanao during the past regimes. Well, most of the population of Mindanao used to be Muslims, but because of that migration, that reversed the actual percentage of Muslims in the area. And I think that also has contributed to this conflict because of land disputes, no? Land disputes, which during one of the findings of the Transitional Justice and Reconciliation Commission is part of the historical injustices committed against the Bangsamoro. So that's why one of the things under the Annex of Normalization is transitional justice, because we need to acknowledge that these historical injustices, including land dispossession, have been committed against us. And as we can see, as you mentioned, there are untapped mines, minerals, and natural resources in the Bangsamoro that we are also trying to protect. As a Bangsamoro government, we have an intergovernmental relations body that deals with energy. We call it the Intergovernmental Energy Board, where the national government cannot just unilaterally issue permits and licenses for any firm or entity that would like to operate within the Bangsamoro without free prior informed consent. Especially especially in areas where the indigenous peoples and indigenous communities are also living. So we are trying to address that. And we will see if it works, if it actually works. Regulation is one of the main mechanisms by which we would like to prevent further conflict, especially involving my resources, natural resources.
Thank you so much. Would you like to chime in, Noraida, on some of these questions? Okay. Would we?
If I'm allowed to just.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Three sentences.
Yeah, if you can keep it short because we still
Yeah,
have
three
a long,
sentences.
yeah, go ahead.
One, it's very historical, that after we were sold to USA in December 10, 1898, Mindanao was included in the map by the Spaniards and sold to US. After that, US intervention came and demand from the sultans and the dato to register the land. Because we don't register land, it's an ancestral land, it was declared as a no man's land, so it became a promised land to the other parts of the Philippines. That's why there's migration of other people from other parts of the Philippines that occupy our land. Second, the international intervention of occupying the land of the indigenous people, the Moro people, all these, banambo, dole pineapple, all these agricultural industry that went and took over our land. And number three, I don't know how we're gonna say that. There's a current plan of big time visiting forces agreement that will go to Mindanao. So these are, I don't wanna bring it here, but I think this United Nations, this is a platform. There's so much US intervention in this conflict.
Thank you so much, Putri. There's still a number of questions. The next one that I have on the list is question on how you're working with the police and local government as part of your, the regional
I
action
think we're
plan.
using the BWC intervention and being technical rather than strategic. The GAT code, was it?
Yeah, and the status of the GAT code, yeah. Those are questions.
Okay, so I think I'll just pick that up. In terms of the social services that the Bangsamoro government has been extending, I cannot speak on behalf of the MNLF. Ma'am Bainon would be in a better position to do that. But it really goes without saying that the Bangsamoro government, through the leadership of the MILF, has been very inclusive. The Ministry of Social Services and Development, the Deputy Minister, who also happens to be a woman, is the daughter of Nur Miswari. I hope, how I wish that Ambassador Chowdhury was still here.
Related to him.
Yeah. So the daughter of Nur Miswari is now Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Social Services and Development, and she belongs to the MNLF. We try to, as you mentioned, Anne-Marie, to really distribute power within and share it between all of the sectors, MILF, MNLF, traditional clans, in governance also. So I'm not really sure where that is coming from, that sentiment is coming from. As to how technical rather than strategic the partnership with the Bangsamoro Women Commission is, I will leave it to Ma'am Bainon to talk about that. And the status of the GAT code, I'll just touch on this because Anne-Marie also mentioned the GAT code and the Bangsamoro Indigenous Peoples Code. The status of the Bangsamoro Indigenous, we call it the Bangsamoro Indigenous Peoples Development Act. It is already at the level of the committee before we adjourned the Parliament for the Ramadan break. We made sure that that has already been referred to the committee, and I think you'll be delighted to read how progressive the bill is, as sponsored by the government of the day. So we're looking at finishing that within the most likely the third quarter of the year, considering all the consultations that have to be done on the ground. The GAD code is still a work in progress. We were talking about it with Chairperson Karon, and I think they've been working with the committee on women of the Bangsamoro Parliament to make this happen. Yeah, with the police. Okay, so, and the next question is about the police, no? Working with the police. So working with the police, we have coordinating committees. We have the Regional Peace and Order Council, where the law enforcement and the security forces are also a part of. We have the Council of Leaders, where women are represented as well as other sectors. And then I think Ma'am Bainon will be sharing about the joint memorandum circular that we are going to be entering together with the Ministry of the Interior and Local Government to make sure that the local government units also have ownership over the women's agenda in the local development plans, no? Until now. Okay, thank you.
So, Bismillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. With regards to, first, in response to the GBB, with regards to this, the WPS commitment is that we have, together with the security sector, we have drafted the guidance note on the prevention and response to GBB. And this guidance note is a guide to ending GBB in the communities crafted by the PNP, BARMM agencies, and CSOs. And we also have this, the BWC, second, the BWC provincial offices are strategically located in the provinces. So we have our provincial offices in the different provinces of the BARMM. With our commissioners, and BWC is not an implementing agency, so we do not give livelihood assistance because we have the different line agencies who have that. Yeah. And since we do not since we are not implementing agency, we usually coordinate the relevant agencies, like for example, the MSSD and WCPD in terms of response to GBB and also on development programs. And BWC is working hard in crafting gender responsive policies. We just published a DMC 2023-0-1 signed by the BWC, MFBM, and PDA on the localization of the Magna Carta of Women. And we work closely with the PCW in capacitating BWC. Now, in the implementation of the order, in the localization of the Magna Carta, this is the local version of the Gender and Development Code. We include in the provision that 2% of the 5% for the MOAs and the LGUs will be allotted for economic empowerment for women, including the sustainable livelihood program.
Thank you, Chairperson Karon. I would like to add a few more points to what Chairperson Karon presented. I'll start with the last point. Philippines so far is the only country, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I would love to be corrected, the only country in the world that has this law on spending for gender and development, that 5% of the total budget of all government agencies from top to bottom, bottom up, will be allocated to gender and development. Economic empowerment projects, training and capacity building on women's participation in leadership. And admittedly, especially in the first 10 years, I would say, there's a lot of misunderstanding or lack of knowledge on how this budget, substantial, really, 5% of the total. And there were a few cases of misuse of this budget. But now with localization, we're very happy to hear, because this is also our experience, is that the mayors, the governors, the municipal councilors, up to the barangay councilors are approaching us on how best they can use this gender budget. And because our entry point, and it will always be women, peace and security, and now in synergy with youth, peace and security, we are able to convince them to direct that to spending on matters or on sub-thematic issues under the women, peace and security agenda. And I'm so happy to hear that there's now a directive that 2% of that would be allocated to the implementation of the RAP. So that's one point that I wanted to clarify. This is really unique, and I'm really, we're really happy to be working, especially with local, regional and local officials to make use of, this budget in ways that would really benefit women. The second point, Leah, is related to your question. And this is from our experience in working in Aliosan, North Cotabato, which is one of the BARMM areas, BARMM municipalities. And through our cooperation with the mayor and the local officials, we were able to, and the women's participation, of course, women's rights organizations in the local localization, we were able to convince them and convince the Peace and Order Council to have greater representation of women. And what does it mean? This happened when the war on drug policy of the Duterte administration was very much, actively implemented. And the women who became members of the Peace and Order Council, that was their main worry. As mothers, as members of their community, that it gave them many sleepless nights that the next victim of Tokang would be their sons. Or Tokang is the word for extrajudicial killing as part of this war on drugs strategy. And their representation in the Peace and Order Council gave them a platform to engage with the local police officials. That, wait a minute, before, I'm of course paraphrasing them, before you implement TOCA, let us talk to our communities first. Let us talk to our young people, and then we'll see what is the root cause of them maybe using some of this, illegal substances. And they are victims. They are not, they are not criminals. Let's work together in giving them the chance from being victims to recovery and contributing to solving this problem. So that to us is a very meaningful impact of their participation in the Peace and Order Council as a result of our localization efforts. So just creating that platform for dialogue before using this punitive approach that has no basis. So yeah, and we look forward to having more conversations with our women leaders here, and of course with Asia Foundation. Okay, is there any more? Okay, me? Oh, okay.
May
I
I?
add
Sure,
an answer to the question about working with the Philippine National Police or with the police? You know, the Asia Foundation has been working closely with the government of the Philippines Peace Implementing Panel as well as the MI, the Peace Implementing Panel, particularly with the government side with the OPAPRO, Office of the Presidential Advisor on Peace, Reconciliation and Unity, in terms of popularizing the ceasefire, the mechanisms, the ceasefire mechanisms within the peace process architecture, such as the CCCX or the Coordinating Committee on the Cessation of Hostilities and the Ad Hoc Joint Action Group or the ADJAG. So in terms of raising, this is to prevent the misencounter between the PNP field personnel and the ground forces of the MILF. So we work closely with the government as well as with the panel of the MILF in terms of raising the awareness of both, field personnel as well as the ground forces to prevent misencounter. So yeah, which is very, very much crucial, because we don't want to delay further the ongoing, implementation of peace agreements as well as ongoing progress that is happening in our region. Thank you so much, Noraida. And now I'll turn over to Elijah to address one remaining point.
Yeah, so about the proportion of women in the civil service, there's actually data that for executive level positions, there's 11% of women in the civil service of the BARMM. And for this division chiefs below, rank and file, 52% based on 19 ministries, agencies of the Bangsamoro government that have been interviewed. The LGU women heads, I would like to say that there are LGU women heads that are there on their own. I would cite Mayor Raida Maglangit of the municipality of Cabatagan, Lanao del Sur. She does not belong to a family that has been in politics, and she has sustained the leadership for how many years now. And we would like to believe that with support coming from development partners in making sure that there's safe space for women to share their ambitions and intentions to take part in politics in the BARMM. I would like to say that we are building capacities and confidence on that, so much so that they don't rely on whether they belong to. And I don't want to really, I just don't want to highlight, I don't want that their relationship to their families is being highlighted in that sense, because they are on their own right, their own persons, and I'm sure that they can represent themselves regardless of the relationship or the affinity that they share with the local politicians. So anti-political dynasty, I think it's a welcome development, especially for women, because again, you don't have to rely on relationships that you have with political clans. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Elijah. And Min, you have one last point. All right.
Thank you, Mavic. Thank you very much for just very briefly. I'm Min Garcia. I'm the Deputy Country Representative of the Asia Foundation in the Philippines. Very briefly, the Bangsamoro peace process and the role of women in that process is a bright spot. But there's so much more to be done. The runway that was given for the transition government is very short. Thank you for the historical background. The Philippines from a Commonwealth to a republic is still a continuing project. So we need to bear that in mind, that the runway is very short and needs to be longer. So there's so much support that needs to be given. From our point of view, the work is structural and systemic, which means it's longer. So when we do support resilience programming or local economic development programming, it's really getting into the structural and systemic issues. So governance for resilience means that we're not supporting communities so that they can bounce back to the status quo and continue to be poor. Rather, what we want to do is to address the structures of power so that communities can bounce and be more progressive, flourish in their communities. And local economic development is not just livelihood, but it's a whole of government, whole of community approach, which is messy and longer. But that's the commitment of the Asia Foundation. The second thing I want to say is that what we have here is a treasure of an intergenerational conversation. And when you go to the BARMM, you will see in the transition government an intergenerational, collaboration with women like Sha Elijah and Anna Basman and others who are taking positions of power from this generation and learning from the pillars such as Chair Bainon Karon. So there is, it's more nuanced than just being inclusive in terms of women, but also this whole intergenerational nuance is so, so important. And the third point I want to make is, yes, we are here. We brought Chair Bainon Karon and we brought Sha Elijah with us. But this award is not, they're receiving it on behalf of a movement of women from the Bangsamoro, from indigenous communities, from your, women like you, and from those who also are out from outside of the region that has helped with the process. So this is a recognition of the Bangsamoro women's movement for peace. And we are just privileged to bring, we wish we can bring more than 5, but that's what I want to emphasize is there's a movement just to encourage you, and thank you so much for your heartfelt and powerful sharing. That's the voice that needs to be in spaces like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, for making my life easier as a moderator and wrapping up, this conversation. And on behalf of our co-organizers, the NYU School of Professional Studies Center for Global Affairs, Hunter College Political Science Department, and of course, the Asia Foundation, I would like for all of us to, give a big applause to our formidable panelists who will be receiving the award tonight, the Lotus Award for Peace tonight. And as Min very well emphasized, the award, Elijah and Chairperson Karon and MP Ida Silongan are receiving it, but it's really on behalf of the movement in the Bangsamoro and many supporters in the Philippines like myself. And
Like yourself, Mavi.
yeah, thank you. And to our online participants, thank you for your contributions. And of course, to all of you who have joined us this morning, we will write a short report and send it to all of you. Thank you so much. And let's continue sharing the story of the Bangsamoro women and inspire many more women peace builders around the world and challenge policymakers that this should be their priority in responding to the crisis and conflicts that we see around the world. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Okay, there's a request for a group photo. Group photo. We can just do it informally, right?
Yes.
Just,
We can sit.
oh, we stay here. Okay, make it easy. Yeah. Yeah, everyone is encouraged to join. Come on, join us. Please.
Just take a photo of you.
I'll take a picture.
No, you have to take a picture. So, yeah.